Well, here's the headline. It's at WayneMadsenReport.com. It's also on Infowars.com. White House threats must be taken seriously. Wayne Madsen, of course, is a Washington, D.C.-based investigative journalist, author, and syndicated columnist. He's written for The Village Voice, The Progressive, Counterpunch, Online Journal, The American Conservative, Fox News, CNN, RT. Madsen has been invited to testify as a witness before the U.S. House of Representatives, the UN Criminal Tribunal and for Rwanda, and an anti-terrorism investigation panel for the French government. Madsen has some 20-plus years of experience in security issues as a former U.S. naval officer in anti-submarine command. He managed one of the first computer security programs for the U.S. Navy. He subsequently worked for the National Security Agency, the Naval Data Automation Command, Department of State, RCA Corporation, and Computer Science Corporation. Madsen was a senior fellow for the Electronic Privacy Information Center, a privacy public advocacy organization. And, of course, we had the D.C. Madam on, thanks to him giving us her contact. He knew her well when she had a lot of documents and things and was going to try to give them to her mother. She was found dead at her mother's house. I had the condo manager on who she was good friends with saying she was being followed. She had to get these documents to her mother. They killed her at the house, hung her in the shed, called it a suicide, put out a fake letter that wasn't even her handwriting. It was not even something a 10-year-old could do a better job of. We have to take this serious because Wayne is a consultant, for international television programs like RT. Wayne is, gaining in stature, and he's always had a big effect. Anytime you watch a national security hearing, you'll see Wayne in the background reporting on it. He also gives briefings at the National Press Club. And he spent months off and on in Chicago and other areas of the country investigating all these mafia ties that are public with Obama. And he's brought out some of that info. Wayne, with these new threats, first tell us about the threats through your credible sources, reports that you might even leave the country, what's happening there, and then B, whatever data you got for all of us here, and for your own safety, as I told the D.C. Madam, and she didn't listen, and I know you're a smart guy, whatever you found out, I know you like to double, triple check and vet everything, but whatever it is you found out in Chicago that you haven't been ready to report yet because you're still digging, you better get it out now or we all know what's going to happen. And then C, I want to get you on record saying you're not planning to commit suicide or go swimming with lead shoes.
Well, yes. The report that I received was from a very credible source. Without getting into identifying who, I can say it was a source with a very large foreign newspaper here in Washington. And his information came from his contacts in his embassy, which are largely intelligence contacts. The country in question is an ally in the United States, so it's not Russia or China or anything like that. And then this threat was verified by another source that I had within the State Department who said, look, I don't like what you write, but I know, it's true, but you have to understand you're a marked man. Now, the other threat specifically said the people in the White House want to kill you. And I said, well, yeah. Yeah, there are people who would like to. I said, is that figurative? He said, no, it's literal. And I had to take that threat seriously because of the stature.
Okay, Wayne, let me interrupt you because your Skype video and audio was breaking up a bit. Go back 60 seconds. Go over both the sources and the particular source with them saying the White House literally wants to kill you. Repeat that.
Yes, what I heard was the White House, they want to kill you. I said, oh, is that figurative? He said, no, it's literal. He said they mean it. And I've had threats before, but I took this one rather seriously. And then I go back and I look at what the Nixon administration tried to do with Jack Anderson. They did try to kill him. It's documented. They were going to poison him. But he was a teetotaling Mormon. They couldn't do that. They were talking about, staging a car accident where he would be incinerated in his car. They also tried to cause problems between him and his wife by putting out word that Anderson was gay. And of course,
yeah, they've had Glenn Beck doing that to me now, just completely ridiculous with no evidence. So I don't care; it's not true. They've also like to call my wife women, saying I've gotten them pregnant. And then when she doesn't buy it, a guy comes on the line and threatens her. Do you think? I want to get more into your story, but it came out last year that I'm number 49 of 50 people on the White House enemies list. No, 43. Should I be concerned, Wayne?
Well, I think we all have to be concerned because we have a record of what the Nixon administration, G. Gordon Liddy, Charles Colson, and E. Howard Hunt, who actually Hunt was not big on the idea of taking out Anderson, and even J. Edgar Hoover thought that was a crazy idea. But we have, because there is a precedent that has been set, and we have to take it seriously. And there's another issue. I've been told that how they deal with recalcitrant journalists and also whistleblowers, they have a playbook they use. Step one is to isolate the target. Now, that is, try to drive a wedge between the target and his friends and family. Number two, they try to take the target out of the public eye, getting their bylines out of publications, getting their name off out of the chyrons on the television programs. And three, then they put the financial screws to you. And when that stage is set, then they, they say, well, the person was despondent and committed suicide. We've seen that with Danny Casolaro, a journalist who was whacked in West Virginia in '91.
Gary Webb, who wrote the Pulitzer Prize-winning book, shotgunned him twice in the head. J.H.
Hatfield, who was the author of Fortunate Son about Bush. So this is their game plan. But I will say on your program, just as my friend Gene Palfrey said, I do not have any plans to commit suicide. I do have plans to leave the country for some extended period of time. One of the things I'm going to do is complete the book on Obama and the CIA. And all I'll say is I'll be backtracking in some of the places where he lived when he was younger.
Okay, do you think that's what's making him angry at you?
Well, what I understand, obviously the stuff about Chicago they like, but what they really do not like is the stuff that I've been writing about the background of Obama and his family with the CIA. That's something that they don't want to go there. They're more than happy to go, see the birth certificate stuff out there. But let's face it, the rifling of Obama in February of '08 during the primary season they were after his passport records, not his birth records. And there's a reason why they were after the passport records is because what those passport records will show.
All right, Wayne, this is too important, and your Skype just broke up for another minute and was almost unintelligible. I want you to repeat what you just said. If it continues to break up, we're going to put you on hold and call your cell phone or home phone back. Okay. It's great to have the video, but we need to be able to hear the audio. So again, if I give the word in a minute, we're going to go ahead and call your cell. So get that ready, guys. Going back here, I want to retrace this. Specifically, sounds like the British consulate from what you've said, but I know you don't want to go there. I'm just guessing, gave you a warning that first came through a major newspaper. Then you got another warning from inside the State Department that, no, they want you dead. I mean, was that person basically threatening them for you, or were they just had it leaked to them knowing that they would tell you?
The source at the embassy wanted the information to be passed to me, and it was not the British. It was an ally, but not the British.
Okay, we had you faded down again there at the start. Start over slowly. Go over exactly, not who the sources are, but basically what type of sector they came from and what they said specifically. Well, the source said, look, they want to kill you. I said, are they being figurative? He said, no, literal. The information was passed by an embassy here of an allied country, and it was passed to this high-ranking journalist with a very large newspaper to get the information to me. And what did you get from the U.S. State Department?
I had a source tell me that there's a State Department source said, look, we don't like what you write. I don't like what you write, but I know it's true. And you need to know that you have been marked. That was the words used.
Now, you said you don't plan to commit suicide anytime soon. Be clear, you will never commit suicide. It's not entered your head.
No, not at all. I would, I'm going to leave the country for some period of time to work on this book and just check things out abroad. But no, suicide is not in the cards whatsoever.
Wayne, so you're going to be traveling, to Indonesia, to Africa, to Pakistan, to Occidental California to look into Obama?
Well, as many places as my funds will allow. There are some leads in some of these locations that I want to track down and see if I can actually get some actual documentation for the book that hopefully I can get this out as we're getting into the campaign season. This should have been done in 2008, of course.
Well, that's probably while they're mad at you, because I know for a while you've already been working on this book. You've been in Chicago, you've been in Florida, you've been in Texas, you've been all over. California, I know you privately told me 3 or 4 months ago that you were getting some grapevine threats over the fact that you spent time in Chicago. I mean, again, has anybody telegraphed to you what it is they don't like? You're saying it's mainly the Obama CIA history.
It's mainly the Obama CIA history. Obviously, they're not too pleased with the fact that I've been in a lot of contact with Larry Sinclair, who also wrote a book about the escapades in Chicago. And of course, he did attempt to take his own life, but some folks were able to save him, and he's now tied up with this court battle over the contents, a libel suit over the contents of his book. So we know that the White House likes to play hardball on people who delve too much into Obama and his family's background.
Well, now we hear this sister that nobody's ever heard about come out and say, sure, he lived in Hawaii, but regardless of what really happened with Kenya and his grandmother saying he was born there, and then his wife in 2 speeches a few years ago saying we traveled back to his home country, of Kenya where he was born, we know he gave up his citizenship in Indonesia and took the name of Barry Soetoro.
Right. We also know that he had a stepsister in Indonesia who died a few years ago. And there's very little information on what caused her death. She was about the same age as Obama, so it wasn't, something from old age or something like that. But there's a lot of question marks about him, and I just think writing the book here with this sort of Damocles hanging over my head, I for peace of mind, I need to complete this book.
Well, you're a big security computer expert, a journalist, a national security expert, a leading one. I'm a layman, but explain to me. It sounds like you're going out of the frying pan into the oven or the fire, leaving the U.S. I mean, the long arm of the corporate mafia. You think you're going to be safer ferreting around looking for his history in these countries?
Well, I think you might think that when you go abroad that you might be subject to the CIA or something, but I think there's a better support network of people abroad who understand what's going on inside the United States, who are more than willing to take the extra measure to provide the security necessary because they know the truth. I mean,
so you're tipping your hand here. You're saying you've got countries, embassy people, that you're going to go to a country where you're going to be provided security.
Yes. Yeah, essentially, yes. I wouldn't be going into these countries if I didn't have a support network there that's already basically invited me to come and track down some of these leads.
Well, buddy, we hope we get to interview you in the future, because I remember warning the D.C. Madam Palfrey here on this show. And this isn't a joke, folks. I risk my life every day. I passed the point no return a long time ago. I'm committed to this. So are you. I hope listeners understand this is real. I mean, how many people connected to exposing Clinton? How many police investigators, private investigators, got Arkansited during the Clinton administration?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and it's all, like I said, started with the Nixon administration and their enemies list. Actually, it's well documented they're trying to kill Anderson. We know that they've gone after other journalists as well, not killing them, but certainly had them fired from their jobs. We have ample evidence of that, and quite recently ample evidence of that. And I think anytime a threat like that is conveyed from White House sources, it just has to be taken seriously. It's not something like, oh, well, they must be kidding or they're exaggerating. No, the history of this doesn't suggest that they are kidding.
What about public letters to Congress and the White House, putting them on notice that your sources, journalistic sources of the highest caliber, have warned you about this, so that there's even more of a public record?
Well, I mean, Congress, garbage in, it's a black hole. The stuff goes in there, nothing ever comes out. The other thing I want to state, too, is it's getting increasingly difficult covering Washington, D.C. because my sources are drying up faster than a puddle in the Sahara Desert. They're just fearful of being exposed.
Well, that's because the Justice Department has been... Yeah, the Justice Department's been publicly burning mild whistleblowers.
Right. We have Thomas Drake, the former NSA official, now being charged under the Espionage Act for providing unclassified information to the Baltimore Sun. Only the fourth such case since the act was enacted during World War I. In this case, Obama's worse than Bush. Believe it or not, when it comes to how they're handling whistleblowers, there's a fear. Fear has set in here in Washington. I have sources drying up left and right. They don't want to talk anymore because they see what happens to some of these other people. They were concerned during Bush, but they were much more willing to talk during the Bush administration, unlike this one.
Wayne, I want to hold you 5 minutes in the next hour, so we have two more little 5-minute segments with you. But I'm going to ask this question now. We're going to reconnect via regular phone with you because your Skype's breaking up too much when we go to break here in about a minute. But before we do that, let me just pose the question now, and you can think about it during the break. We have the White House regulations are saying arrest people that disagree with the government, infiltrate their groups, cognitive dissonance, set them up. 2 weeks ago, Politico gets the memos from last year inside of Media Matters. George Soros group saying, we're going to destroy the alternative media, starting with Fox News. I think that's popular, and other sites critical of the administration. We're going to guerrilla warfare, destroy them. So this is a very scary group here. So who do you think they're going to send after you? Chicago Mafia? CIA hitmen? I mean, what quarters do you think this... them knocking you on the head or giving you a shot and then holding you up and putting that tourniquet around your neck. I mean, folks, they'll do it. They'll kill him dead in a hammer, and they'll send a message to everybody. I mean, they'll kill me. I mean, let me tell you, folks, that's a real possibility. It's creepy when I got to travel to cities and turn off the light in my own hotel room. I'll be honest, sometimes we've had people following us. I go ahead and barricade the door. Just so I have a fighting chance, but they can kill you. I mean, look at Mubarak. He wouldn't step down. He has a stroke. Then he's in the trial and has a heart attack. In the death threats we've gotten, they want you to know it's the government. It'll show no number, and when they death threat you, they'll act nice at first, but then start telling you something that you just had in a phone conversation 10 minutes before. And they'll say, this has happened, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 times over the years. Now you know who we are, don't you? Because I told you that. Now I'm going to kill you. You understand that? You're dead. And they'll say it in a really mean voice. This is who runs America. And you understand they're going to take your pension funds. They're going to start new wars. They're going to destroy everything. The country's over if we don't have courage. We got to stand up to these people. I'm risking my life. Wayne is. Ron Paul is. You better believe. Stand beside us, folks, not behind us. We're going to beat these people. We don't have a choice. Somebody has got to stand up to them. Wayne, we went to break there. I brought up the admissions of the White House regulations are of COINTELPRO and how great it is. The bizarre memos out of George Soros's Media Matters about guerrilla warfare against alternative media. The people at Media Matters who listen every day and write about the show every few days, those interns listening, they need to understand they're going to end up, if we get victory against them, going down like Nixon's people.
Well, that's right, And I have to say that I have seen how almost every group, including those who supposedly protest the Obama administration, have been totally infiltrated. The anti-war movement, some of these other groups, some of these privacy organizations, civil liberties organizations, all infiltrated, all with Soros money for the most part. And I mean, it makes the Nixon's enemies list look like a shopping list.
Wayne, when are you planning to leave the United States?
Well, without getting into details, it's not easy to just pick up after being here for so long to go elsewhere. But it will be in the next few weeks, maybe a month or so.
Is there any part of your investigation in Chicago or into his CIA grooming background, do you have any intel you haven't released that you can get out here now that'll lessen the chances of them whacking you?
Well, all I can say is we know that ex-Governor Blagojevich's trial begins the end of this month in Chicago. There's a lot of information that the prosecutors are suppressing. I think it'll show what was really going on inside Chicago politics with the Olympics, trying to get the Olympics scam, and who was going to benefit from that. Valerie Jarrett, Michelle Obama, the late head of the school board, Michael Scott, who was found dead in the Chicago River with a bullet in his head, which has still not been resolved as a suicide by the Chicago PD. That, I think, is what we're going to find in addition to some of the seamier sides of Obama and Rahm Emanuel's past.
What about CIA background with Obama? You must be getting close if they're after you.
Well, I think that's what's got them more concerned than anything else. I've been going, especially Stanley Ann Dunham, his mother. I mean, it was quite clear that her whole history was invented. She was not some flower child, hippie, bohemian type. She was a graduate of the University of Hawaii in anthropology and is immersed in post-coup Indonesia, where they killed 800,000 to 1 million people, courtesy of the military.
She was a minion of the big foundations and Geithner's papa.
Ford Foundation, the World Bank, you name it. She was in all those. Never was on food stamps in her entire life.
Yeah, she was above CIA level, actual globalist management level. Back in 1 minute with Wayne Madsen. Stay with us. Doing a final 5 minutes with Wayne Madsen, investigative journalist, WayneMadsenReport.com. And he's a particularly bad Skype and phone line today. And he just dropped. We're getting him back on for a final few questions here. He has said that he is getting ready to leave the United States. And for somebody who hasn't gotten government death threats, where they let you know they're listening to your phones and tell you things you were talking about 5 minutes before, 10 minutes before they threaten you, you know, at that point, you're just like, I can't live in fear. I just got to go all out against you people. And I don't even really look over my shoulder. I don't want to die. I love life so much. I love my children more than life itself. But it is what it is. Somebody's got to commit against these people. Somebody has got to have the courage to say no to the New World Order. Somebody has got to realize just how serious these globalists are and that they're totally ruthless. I mean, America is being turned into one giant FEMA camp with the children trained to have the government molesting them, to have the parents trained to turn their kids over, the government taking blood samples from babies at birth, now admittedly for close to 4 decades. It just has to end. It has to stop. We've got to at least slow it down. But instead of slowing it down, what's happening is there's a huge awakening happening, and the globalists are just putting things into high gear. They are putting the entire system into high gear. We got Wayne back. We only got about 3 minutes. Wayne Madsen, anything else you'd like to add? Anything else you're looking into? Dealing with these direct, major media telling you and the State Department telling you, look, the word is they want you dead. I mean, clearly they wanted this message to get to you that they are planning to kill you.
Well, I, of course, did a sanity check on myself and ran this by some very close colleagues of mine who are journalists, and I let them know what the source was, and they were, really concerned and upset. They said, you have to take that seriously. So, I mean, it's not just something that was passed over the transom as a sort of an idle threat. I did vet this with others who kind of urged me to, take it seriously and, of course, do the right thing. So I think just that Washington is not a good place to be right now. There's no access for independent journalists. There's no there's the sources are drying up. It's almost like covering politics in Pyongyang, North Korea here now.
Wayne, are we going to be able to get you back up in the next few weeks before you leave the country?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, maybe we should get you on a good phone line and have you for a full hour. Or before you leave the country, you're welcome to come down here to Austin and be in studio with us. We might even be able to, in fact, we will. If you want, we'll buy you a plane ticket and put you up here for 2 or 3 days. Maybe you can be our in-studio analyst for a couple days. You want to, after you move out of your apartment or box everything up or whatever you're planning, you want to come down to Austin?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to do that.
Well, we've got to hang together or certainly hang separate, and our founding fathers went through similar things. They had British death warrants out on their heads, and John Hancock, knowing they'd come after his land, his family, he signed his name the biggest at the top, and he said, if I'm going to be on the list, I want to be on the top of the list.
Absolutely.
But doesn't this, in closing, signify that they're scared, they're desperate, they're not invincible?
Oh, I think so. The thing is, they're doing damage control now. They don't want any surprises coming out because the smart money is on Obama getting reelected because we see this, this circus on the other side. And so that's where all the smart Wall Street money is. 4 more years of Obama to carry out their agenda, which he's doing quite nicely and has been. And we'll hear more about that with his speech tonight.
That's right. He's announcing a new tax code to help us. Boy, this is help we don't need, Wayne.
Absolutely, and the devil will be in the details, I'm sure.
Wayne, while we have you, I'm going to put you on hold here at the end of this segment. We're going to go ahead and look at the book next week and look for a time to get you on and maybe give us off record a ballpark of when you leave town. Maybe you can make a stop through Austin so we can physically interview you here. I know we've gone to D.C. to interview you before, but God bless you. We'll all pray for you. Support him at WayneMadsenReport.com. Well, for the next 40 minutes or so, Wayne Madsen of the WayneMadsenReport.com is going to be joining us. We don't normally have him on every week, but he's leaving the United States. He's traveled to Chicago from his home in D.C., spent months tracking down the mafia connections to Barack Obama, a real name, Barry Soetoro of Indonesia. He also has been really ferreting out the evidence that Obama, his mother, and much of his family didn't just work for the biggest tax-free foundations and Timothy Geithner's dad and the Rockefeller Foundation, but was CIA. And his entire background has been expunged and carefully hidden. He is a globalist Manchurian candidate. It's come out that Tony Blair was MI5 and MI6 connected and was actually an MI6 agent, some of the papers have reported, over in England, as early as college. And, of course, they had a new movie out, basically, with a fictional account of that, Ghost Rider, that just came out last year, dealing with that. And of course, it's admitted that the globalists have these corporate operatives and also government operatives that they prepare, like George Herbert Walker Bush, became the CIA director, claiming he'd never been in the CIA in the mid-1970s, and then it was declassified years later. He was in the CIA out of college at the end of World War II. And, of course, who founded the CIA? That's also declassified. Yale, particularly Skull and Bones, which was a private British/German intelligence agency that recruited the best and brightest of America's East Coast, kind of Atlantic accented elitist, and that formed the core of the CIA. And Robert De Niro's film, The Good Shepherd, very historical, breaks all of that down. And so this fits the bill. This is how the shadow state controls things. Just like in all these third world countries, they train for decades people here in the West. They dispatch them to lead rebel groups to overthrow the government and then put in their own dictatorship. One of the best examples is Saddam Hussein, young army officer, 1958. Sent and trained in Egypt for 4 years, then sent in to commit assassinations. And the West made a deal that he was made the head of Bath Security. The assassinations would stop, and the attempted assassinations would stop. Then in '79, the West staged a coup with Saddam to put him into power. Then 3 years later, they gave him $30+ billion to attack the Iranians. Then in 1990, they told him, go ahead, we don't care, we're going to support you in an attack on the Kuwaitis. Then they lied and said he was throwing babies out of incubators as a way to then double back and take out their old minion. But I'm sorry, Wayne Madsen joins us. I'm digressing with a history lesson. WayneMadsenReport.com. He's a Washington, D.C.-based investigative journalist, author, syndicated columnist, written for The Village Voice, Progressive, Counterpunch, Online Journal, America Conservative, Infowars.com. Mike, your dad, in addition to regular guest on CNN, RT, Fox News. He was on the UN. He was an advisor before the U.S. House of Representatives on the UN Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda and an anti-terrorism investigative panel for the French government. Madsen has some 20 years experience in security issues, U.S. naval officer, managed computer systems for the Navy, National Security Agency. It goes on and on. He's also one of the founding members of EPIC, the Electronic Privacy Information Center, a true defender of online liberty and free speech. But for those that don't know, recapping, Wayne, before we get into other issues, I just want to get you here while we can before you leave the U.S. Into some type of respite to write your book to expose these people that you've been out ferreting out corruption, and now you're getting confirmed reports through the State Department, through a major international media source and a foreign embassy that the White House wants you to know that they may have you killed any day. Wayne Madsen, thanks for joining us.
Good to be with you, Alex. I would add to that some of those threats have now been confirmed by sources in Chicago. So they keep continuing. The confirmations, anyway, keep continuing.
Just to recap it, tell folks about the specific conduits of the threats, and then let's get more into Obama and his CIA background that has got them so hopping mad.
Well, I was told by a major media person here for a very large foreign newspaper, who's, of course, many of these foreign journalists in Washington are closely connected to their embassies, and within their embassies, of course, are a lot of intelligence people. As a favor, he told me that the people at the embassy wanted me to know that the White House wanted to kill me. I mean, and I said, "Are you being metaphorical here?" He says, "No, I mean it." So that was followed up by a source within the State Department who basically said the same thing using the words "you're a marked man." So those kinds of things, I don't think can be taken lightly, especially after we've seen so many, and I've investigated many of these unexplained suspicious deaths, like the wife of the White House aide, Ashley Turton, former aide to the Secretary of Air Force, Jack Wheeler, found in a landfill in Wilmington. Ashley Turton burned up in her car here on Capitol Hill. And I mean, the list goes on and on, how many of these suspicious deaths I've myself investigated.
Yeah, it's been said that D.C. Hookers are as ubiquitous as water fountains. I think hitmen are as ubiquitous as water fountains as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at the history of this town, from, the Vince Foster case to, it just goes on and on. There's so many, and many of them have just wound up as in the cold case files of the police.
So you're
department.
leaving because it's a lot easier for them to kill you there. I mean, they could shoot Vince Foster, put the wrong gun in his hand, no blood at the scene, have Hillary cleaning his office with carpet cleaners, keeping the police out. I mean, they can kill people in plain view there, and it's so corrupt that they can basically Arkansas you if they want. So you're getting out of there just so you're not as easy as a target.
Yeah, I mean, we had during the Bush administration, I think it was back in 2003, we had two people do a swan dives off of major landmarks here in Washington. The State Department employee off the roof of the State Department, and a guy who used to be an intelligence official for the CIA took a swan dive off the Watergate. I mean, both of these were reported as just unfortunate suicides by the Washington Post, which I call the compost. By
the way, you're not. How many floors up are you at your condo? Because I can see that it's a foggy day there in D.C. because you're shooting this from out on your balcony.
It is foggy. This is 13 stories up. Not a good number, is it? Very unlucky, but. But anyway, at least I could get it. I'm assured of getting a decent signal here because the AT&T cell tower is literally a few blocks away. So that services the Pentagon. So unless they want to interfere with their own communications, they won't interfere with mine.
That's right. We got a better video Skype connection with you today. But we hope that before you try to leave town, you don't try to become a bird and fly off that balcony right there.
Well, I'll tell you, it's hard to get in this building. The security here is pretty good, but from the vantage point now over my shoulder, you can see we've got the Washington Monument and the White House down below there, and it's amazing what you see, especially at night with the helicopter traffic flying around. I often see Obama's Marine One shooting back and forth.
When I was there in D.C. last, we went to some of the restaurants in Georgetown at night, and there were the cream of American beauties. I mean, these were truly beautiful women, much more beautiful than you see even on TV and things, getting in limos, getting in cars, Secret Service saying, don't videotape this. We'd be sitting there eating dinner trying to videotape it as shots of corruption going on. I mean, are the hookers and the young women of America flocking more to D.C. than they do to L.A. to be in porn?
Well, I think we see that with the annual White House Correspondents' Dinner, this kind of nexus between Hollywood and Washington. We get all the celebrities here going, it's a mixture of politics and entertainment, and certainly there is sort of an axis between Washington and Hollywood.
Yeah, so the globalists not only rob us in Washington, it's turned into a giant honey trap to suck in all the young women who don't have a future as a professor or a scientist or a doctor, but they've got a future taking care of world leaders, and if they ever complain about it, they'll just burn up in their car or be hung from the neck until dead, because America's run by the good guys, Wayne. We're about to go to break, but let's start getting into, well, specifically, did these sources say they're mad about the Obama-CIA connection you're ferreting, or is that your gut? I mean, do they let you know what it is that they're upset about?
Yeah, it's basically the CIA connection. I mean, I think that is their Achilles heel. They've been dealing with the birth certificate issue for quite some time. They seem to have all kinds of pat answers for that. But the CIA connection, his mother, Stanley Ann Dunham, his grandparents, who looked like they actually predated the CIA and worked for the Office of Strategic Services during World War II, the OSS. Well, we've got basically a biography of Obama and his family that's been concocted by some very good fiction writers up, I would assume, up at Langley.
Then we've got his dad, who had a British intel connection, didn't he?
Yeah, Barack Sr., of course, came to the United States as part of the Airlift Africa program, the CIA's program to influence new leaders of newly independent African countries to compete with the Soviets, who were doing the same thing at the People's Friendship University in Moscow, which later became Patrice Lumumba University.
And just everybody you look at, it just continues with this guy totally hooked in with these intelligence groups. And you look at his cabinet now, it's all the very same families that were in intelligence at the time with his mommy.
Oh, absolutely. Tim Geithner, his father was the boss for Obama's mother. Very small world, isn't it?
Certainly is. Let's come back and look more into this. Also, get your view on what's happening in the Middle East, North Africa, what's happening with the economy. Wayne Madsen, we're interviewing him while we can before he evacuates the United States. Wait, since I bring that up, before we get back into Obama and the CIA background, formerly with the NSA and a computer expert, Wayne Madsen, what do you make of this incredible new Chinese-style Internet ID system with the admissions that it's going to track everything you do. And the White House said it's voluntary, but even CNET and Wired Magazine said that's not true. This is a forced system once they get it in place.
Well, yeah, this is a typical example of what I call function creep or mission creep. The White House is saying, well, it's to prevent identity theft. But as we've seen with all these other initiatives from the government in the past, what they say and what they ultimately do with these new systems is very invasive, and I would I know that some of my old colleagues from when I worked at Epic are on this story, and I agree that this is just like back during the Clinton administration when they were pushing this government encryption system called the Clipper chip. They said, "Oh, this is to protect your electronic funds transfers and things like that." Yet the government would hold the key. And there was a huge battle over that, and here we go again with another initiative, and it looks like look. I mean, you look at Janet Napolitano, the Homeland Security Department, and the people that Obama has put in these national security positions, and all of them, every single one of them, are for massive surveillance systems. It's in some respects, it's actually worse than Bush. And here with this Internet ID, here we have an example of an initiative that was never even tried by the previous administration. And I never thought I'd say that Obama would be worse than Bush in some respects, but he absolutely is in many respects. Freedom of information, this new thing with the Internet. And countless, and starting a third war where Bush had 2 wars going, Obama now has 3 wars going.
But we know, not giving Obama an out, I mean, it's fun to dislike him. He is a distasteful teleprompter reading liar. It's that the globalists are further down the road for this new global banking empire known as the New World Order. They're committed. They've committed so many crimes that they've got to either prevail or they're going to fall, and fall hard. And so I would imagine whatever new fake Republican savior they put in, if it's not Ron Paul, if it's Donald Trump or Mitt Romney, people are going to be amazed how bad they are, because it's all just a continuation. It's a continuity of agenda.
What this construct, I think, runs the risk of, they may be hit by a ton of bricks, and I'm being sort of tongue-in-cheek here, BRICS being the new a pact of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and now South Africa. They are basically, if you listen to their government leaders, they're saying we are out to stop the Western control over international finances through the IMF, through the World Bank, through the G20, through the G8, and they're making no bones about it, the fact that they don't like the fact that so much international monetary policy is set blocks from the White House at the IMF and World Bank headquarters. They're calling for an end to that, and these are burgeoning economies where the U.S. and Britain and France are collapsing economies.
That's right. The West has even lost its will to have children. We have a corrupt elite who socially engineered us to be servile and dumb, but so we would be more manageable. But once you do that, zombies don't reproduce. Zombies aren't creative. And so the zombie world, run by the zombie kings of the New World Order, are trying this last gasp attempt to set up their world empire with the senile, stumbling Soros at the top of it, openly, saying how proud he is that he helped round up Jews as a collaborator. I mean, these are very, very sick people, but they've got nuclear weapons.
Well, they do, and I mean, we look at we look at what the U.S. is doing around the world, and this projection of military strength and military aggression. I've heard no one say, "Wait a minute, here we've got a country that has no respect for international law with weapons of mass destruction." I haven't heard anyone say, "Well, maybe they should be removed from these people."
All right, stay there, Wayne Madsen. I want to, in one more segment with you, get your intel on what's really happening in the Middle East, North Africa. I mean, now it's just admitted that the West financed the whole thing. Incredibly criminal. Overthrowing their old favorite dictator, Mubarak. Where that goes next. The Saudis saying they're going to cut oil output, that they've been double-crossed by the West. We'll talk about it all. Getting into your view, your take, the breakdown on what's happening in the Middle East. We know it's globalist-backed, but the larger question is why? What is the end game? Wayne Madsen.
Well, I saw what happened in North Africa, starting in Tunisia and
then in Egypt, and then spreading to Libya, and now Syria. Look, we had riots against the austerity measures being imposed by the IMF in Greece. We saw general strikes in Spain and in Portugal. We saw mass demonstrations in Italy. This, of course, these demonstrations went south on the Mediterranean coast. They affected Tunisia and Egypt and now Syria. And what we're seeing is an attempt from these latest cables that have been released, the U.S. backing the Syrian opposition, the CIA giving them money, USAID, the Soros-connected NGOs, just like we saw after the initial uprising in Libya. How what these elitists are trying to do is ensure a soft landing. They want to make sure that whoever comes in after Gaddafi or Mubarak or Ben Ali in Tunisia or Assad in Syria is somebody they can deal with, somebody they've nurtured. And here we have in Syria the fact that the groups that have been funded by the CIA and USAID and the NGOs have these groups are based in London. That reminds me of one Ahmed Chalabi, the Iraqi National Congress, living in the most expensive neighborhood in London, who was being groomed to take over from Saddam Hussein. The other thing these countries have in common, I would note, Mubarak, Assad, and Gaddafi, and Ben Ali in Tunisia were all covert partners of the CIA in its rendition and torture program. And now we've basically thrown these guys out, and we obviously want to replace them with somebody who will keep up this phony war on terrorism. And the other thing, I predicted this, that these North African rebellions would start heading south into sub-Saharan Africa. We're seeing that play out right now. Massive mutiny underway in Burkina Faso. We're seeing demonstrations in Gabon and in Uganda against the U.S.-supported dictator there. So we are seeing these rebellions spread to the south, to Black Africa.
In Saudi Arabia, what's happening in Yemen, Bahrain? Because our sources inside big oil companies, Lindsey Williams and others, 6 months ago said there's going to be a destabilization in the Middle East, North Africa. It's going to lead to $150 a barrel oil or more. The Saudis are going to be double-crossed. They've invested in the dollar. As the world moves away from the dollar, the West isn't just going to cheat them out of their T-bills by devaluing them. They're also going to basically overthrow them. An end of this 100 years of British intelligence officers being the Saudi royal family, Bedouins they gave a crown to and some machine guns and hand grenades and said, you're the king. Since our sources said this 6 months ago, we've seen the Saudis run to Russia, run to China. They're openly talking about a double cross. Normally, during an economic situation like this, they would increase output. Now they're saying they're going to slash output with a sarcastic statement about saying market is oversupplied as oil prices surge towards record prices. What do you make of all of this? And from your research, do you have anything that backs that up, that there's a plan by the globalists to basically overthrow not just friends like Mubarak, but other seedy, sickening, inbred scum like the Saudis?
Oh, I think that's always in the cards. Right now, I think the U.S. is trying to protect its military interests in the Gulf region, the support we've shown for the regime in Bahrain, which hosts a U.S. naval base, the headquarters of the 5th Fleet. I think right now we're trying to shore up those regimes. But the deputy Chinese foreign minister said something very interesting at the BRICS summit on Hainan Island in southern China. He said that there are other countries who he would not name who have asked to join this anti-NATO, anti-EU, anti-U.S. New grouping of nations that are basically positioning themselves to pick up the pieces after the collapse of this American empire. And I would not be surprised if, the reason he didn't mention the names of the countries, I would think that maybe Saudi Arabia could be one of them. Certainly, I would think Turkey, which is a growing regional power politically and economically, is also a country that would like to divorce itself from the United States and go with this new alignment.
Isn't that, though, part of the globalist grand strategy? These giant capital pits run by the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Soroses, because we see their minion Geithner 2 years ago in China, and now again 2 weeks ago saying, yes, we're looking at something that's an alternative to the dollar. We like this. And the globalists that have used America are basically done with us now. They've run up our credit card. They've destroyed our name while carrying out their operations. And so now they're basically hedging their bet, moving more in an alignment with the BRIC nations. I mean, look at the bailout of General Motors. Billions to Brazil to build plants. Billions to Eastern Europe. Billions to China. I mean, the people running Washington are basically sinking this ship and now jumping on the new ship they've outfitted, the BRICS.
Well, they may want to join up, but I listened to, for example, the Brazilian finance minister, the trade minister of South Africa. They all had the same line, basically. They don't like the fact the U.S. is flooding the world with cheap dollars. They don't like quantitative easing. They're blaming the Western banks for causing the worst economic collapse since the Great Depression of the 1930s. And it's quite clear what they're talking about. They're saying the day where these old white guys sit in Geneva and London and New York and call the shots, and here in Washington, that those days are over. And I think that the mere fact that, whatever Geithner's saying, he's trying to protect himself. But I think this is also a cultural thing. And let's face it, I mean, these countries several decades ago were third world nations, and now they're growing in stature. And I think there's a bit of an
But it was the globalists
here
that passed the tax laws to incentivize moving to those countries. I mean, what I'm pointing out is this has always been part of the larger stratagem to bring the U.S. and Europe down and then move it into this new system. And sure, the president of Brazil and others, they put out rhetoric that's popular. It's kind of like El Barity saying we'll have war with Israel when it's known that he's on this international council with Soros and General Jones and, all the rest of them. So, I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I mean, it's been the globalist that helped put these current elites basically into power in the BRICS nations you're talking about, with the exception of Russia. Now, Russia is the big wild card. What do you see happening with Russia?
Well, we don't know how this presidential election is going to play out. Clearly, Dmitry Medvedev, the current president, is a favorite of these Western institutions. They do not like Vladimir Putin, the prime minister. So there's talk of maybe a race between the two, but they're supposed to be partners. They're being very coy about their future political plans, unless they're just trying to play the world for suckers and saying, I think that we're going to have a race against one another, when in fact I think Putin's very popular in Russia, and I think Putin will probably run for president and and get his old job back.
Oh, absolutely. They're putting on a fake fight. He put Medvedev in there to be his placeholder so he could come back later. And anybody that buys into the fact that these two are fighting with each other really hasn't done any geopolitical research. I think Michael Corleone in The Godfather says, you don't think you could fool a Corleone with that trick. Well, it doesn't take a Corleone to know what's going on here.
Oh, right. But I think what we're seeing is a sort of a realignment of these old structures. I think after the collapse, the collapse of the American Empire is a foregone conclusion. We're just like the Roman Empire that sent its legions out to the periphery as Rome itself was collapsing. It's a fool's errand. We're striking out at Libya. We're still sending drones into Pakistan when their government said stop. We don't care what you think. We're going to continue to do it. These are the death throes of a dying regime, and I think obviously after the collapse we're going to see a major realignment. We're going to see new regional powers being developed. Sure.
And, in closing, great points. When do you see this realignment happening? It looks like it may even be starting right now with reports of Standard & Poor's downgrading and saying that they don't see a good future for our AAA rating. They're saying that they now have a negative outlook on the AAA rating in the future.
There's even reports in Washington about there's a move to maybe repudiate our national debt. But I think if any of that happens, if we're junk bond rated or there's a repudiation, we're talking about the end of this party here. That's been a party for these wealthy fat cats for so many years.
Well, they're certainly setting up a police state, though, to try to suppress us. They're certainly doing a rear guard action or trying to secure their home base. And the natives here are getting pretty restless.
Well, we saw what happened in the state capitals, and this is very much in line with what I heard from a former Obama administration financial advisor in November. He said, what will happen in the United States won't be like Greece or Spain or Portugal or Iceland. It'll be more state by state. And sure enough, we're seeing the states cutting back, implementing austerity measures, and then the people getting out and demonstrating in mass.
But notice, nothing is ever cut from the banksters of the lion's share of the fake debt. The Republicans won't talk about it. Democrats won't talk about it. Nobody will touch the real authors of our problems. They want to scapegoat it off onto welfare moms. And you could throw all of them into a bottomless pit. This problem wouldn't even be handled.
Right, it's a kabuki dance, what we see between Paul Ryan and Barack Obama and Geithner. This is all for consumption. This is for the Sunday morning talking head shows. They do get behind closed doors. They know what they're doing, and they're practicing what I call financial alchemy. They're trying to make things out of nothing. And of course, we the American people are the last ones to know about this. What goes on behind closed doors, but all this jockeying for position with John Boehner and all these other characters, saying we're not going to do that. Look, they didn't shut down the government. They won't shut down the government. They've got a budget. It's gonna hurt the people who are really not in a position to be hurt any more than they already are. And but this is the austerity moves that we saw in Europe. I was told by this Obama official who resigned, he said, I'm never going to give them any more money again. He was a financial contributor, but he said in the U.S. it's going to be a state-by-state uprising, and we've certainly seen that happen.
And have you now
seen
this? Have you seen this, in closing, this chilling propaganda on radio, TV about how great Lincoln was and how the feds may have to come in against the states again, and the states have no rights, and if the states try to have any power over their lives, that the feds are going to deal with them? I mean, it looks like they are getting the public ready for some type of John Warner Defense Authorization Act provision with this 10-member governor council to try to come in here and federalize things.
Well, it's a sesquicentennial of the Civil War, so we have this Robert Redford movie out now, The Conspirators. It's getting a lot of attention about the plot to kill Lincoln. But it should be remembered that the conspirators, Mary Surratt and the others, were tried and found guilty by military commissions. So we had military commissions passing these sentences against civilians. What are they trying to tell us?
It's incredible. And at the same time, Obama's announcing he'll have secret commissions try you and execute you in kangaroo courts. Wayne Madsen, getting out of Dodge. We look forward to interviewing you once you get to your new home base, your new rebel base. We've been to the base at, I guess, Tantooine, and it's been abandoned for some time. All right, we'll talk to you again soon. WayneMadsenReport.com.